Warning!
DJ Kenny
Say it's a couple shot song. The world know. Question them. Who go Peter King Mansion? We get satisfaction. We if you want for you know batty boy fi get the pump action. Yeah, which one I wanna pussy?
Barney Walker
forget
Jr.
the Uzi. No deal with nobody think now go work here. If you find say your body boy in the dance, well you know him get hurt here for
The Jackal
sure.
of Saturn.
Bruce come on TV and have this conversation. Him tell them this is not a batty nation. We no play number 2. Batty is not for we. I can't believe it. Them no one put on it. Man, I get them on it.
Barney Walker Jr. was born April 1, 1923 in St. James, Jamaica. He is the middle child of 3, which includes his older brother Nelson and his younger brother Warren. Barney's father Barnaby is a stout tycoon who happened to own all of the prisons in the island of Jamaica, and is the Jamaican government's head Obia high priest. Barney's mother Tess Collins, who's secretly Barnaby's half-sister out of wedlock to keep the wealth in the family, was a high priestess in Aleister Crowley's coven. The Walker bloodline is another Warch bloodline that rules the world just like the Spookgore family. However, the politically fascist Anglo-Germanic Spookgore's goal is to use genocide and mass murder for their New World Order, while the Celtic Walker family is a family of socialist Marxist Jews who rather weaponize minorities to get their New World Order accomplished with the use of proxy wars, false flags, race wars, socio-political subversion, Hollywood propaganda, MKUltra, destroying the nuclear family unit, and witchcraft. Although the Walker family is Scottish, their origins trace back to the ancient land bordering ancient Israel known as Edom, in what is now southwestern Jordan, between the Dead Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, dating back at least 72 BC. Barney is the direct descendant of King Herod the Great, aka King of the Herodian Kingdom of Judea. The relationship between the Edomites and the Israelites was rather complex, marked by both kinship and violent conflict. King Herod ruled Judea with an iron fist beginning from 37 BCE to 4 BCE. The Edomites refused the Israelites passage through their land during the Exodus, and there was numerous instances of conflict between the two nations. The Edomites were often enemies of Israel and were condemned by the prophets in the Bible for their hostility, especially given the fact that it was King Herod himself who predicted the birth of Christ, and did everything he could to conspire the assassination of Christ before he became an adult. King Herod had a premonition from a demon known as Baal that showed him that there would be a son of God who would be the new king of the Jews. King Herod, appointed by Rome as the king of the Jews, was jealous, threatened and paranoid by his vision of the birth of Christ. King Herod not only viewed Jesus as a threat to his system of rulership, but also as a rival that has yet to be born. A day later, the Magi, wise men or psychics guided by a star, arrived in Jerusalem seeking the newborn king, prompting Herod to inquire about his premonition. King Herod gives 3 bars of gold each to the Magi to pay to locate this newborn king of the Jews. King Herod directs the Magi to Bethlehem, asking them to return and inform him of the child's location so he can worship the child as well, but secretly intends to kill the child by stabbing him in baby Jesus' heart as an offering to Baal for immortality. While sleeping en route to Bethlehem, the Magi had a dream warning them to abort King Herod's commission and never return to him. The dream showed all of King Herod's plans for Christ, leading to the Magi immediately aborting the mission and throwing their gold in the ocean. The furious King Herod ordered the killing of all male infants in Bethlehem, fulfilling the prophecy of Rachel weeping for her children. Within the chaos, Archangel Michael warned Joseph in a dream about King Herod's plans for Mary's child, prompting the Holy Family to flee to Egypt to escape Herod's wrath. Herod died in 4 BCE around the age of 69 from arteriosclerosis after unsuccessfully trying to take his own life. There were tensions in Judea at the time as Herod ruled both Romans and Jews. All this was a result of all his wicked black magic, and the murders of innocent children to rebel against God for his pride backfiring back to him energetically. King Herod's symptoms starting shortly after his attempted human sacrifice of Christ, included intense itching, intestinal pain, breathlessness, convulsions, and gangrene of the genitals due to a secondary infection like Fournier's gangrene. Within 3 generations, the family migrated to what's known as modern-day Scotland. Migration was easy for the Walkers considering how they married their way into Viking leadership due to their bloodline or experts at pagan magic due to them being Warches. The Walkers would easily summon pagan and Norse gods with ease without doing much work for a ritual unless it's for blood magic. The Walkers would protect Viking leaderships and their weapons with protection spells to conquer all nations undefeated. The Walkers' ultimate goal was to rule Scotland from within but take over the New World, North America, all for themselves. In order to do this, around the 1400s, the Walker family had an idea to get the Moors and the Templars angry enough with each other to keep a non-stop war going over race and religion, and have an excuse to start their slavery operations in the New World. The Walkers at the time were aware of Leif Erikson's Tales of the New World, and wanted to have North America to themselves to turn an entire continent with under their complete obedience. The goal was to have a world where they can do their black magic and get away with it in broad daylight, since they are tired of hiding their true nature to humanity. The Walkers practiced Judaism and satanic magic in secrecy until the 17th century. In the 17th century, the Walkers took advantage of Jewish migration to Europe to frame their mass human sacrifices on the immigrating Jews new to Scotland. Around the same time, the Walker family was already heavily involved in the slave trade by providing steel shackles to slave-driving families like the Rivera, Collins, Gonzalez, and Sanchez families, as well as to their English cousins in the Fowler family. The Walkers' claim to fame in the slave trade was being one of the first slave plantations in Jamaica. Due to the Walker family's gold and steel empire, the Walker family was secretly behind the power of the Spanish and English monarch and made a pact with them to have full ownership of the island of Jamaica, in exchange for free steel surplus to their military-industrial complex. The Walkers weaponized the Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese governments with the use of providing them gold from their bloodline's rulership of Edom, to invade Africa for more gold and to have unlimited manual labor, and spread Catholicism to Africans. Once the pact was made, England officially became the sole occupant of Jamaica, and Barney's family officially migrated to Jamaica. By the early 1800s, the Walkers were the biggest slave-driving bloodline in the world. Starting with Barney's extended family members. Trelawney, Jamaica's slave owner Alexander McLaughlin, notorious for holding enslaved people working on the Cheshire plantation, also owned a pen called the Reserve and the Rock Pleasant pen. Alex was slave master so cruel that he would have the children of his slaves suffering from separation anxiety get buckbroken in front of their mothers at John Fowler's plantation known as the Friendship Estate in Trelawney, Jamaica. Alexander's will proved in 1783 he owned the enslaved people and made provisions for them and his family even beyond death. Then we have Alex's son Hugh McLaughlin, known for his involvement in inventorying enslaved persons at Windsor Estate and Williamsfield Settlement in St. Elizabeth Parish. Astronomer and former House Assemblyman of St. Elizabeth, Jamaica Alexander McFarland, who owned multiple sugar plantations and a whopping 800 slaves in Jamaica. James Stewart Jr., owner of the Stewart Castle plantation between 1809 to 1819, in which the number of enslaved people recorded each year was around 300 to 400. James was Custos Rotulorum of the parish of Trelawney, Jamaica between 1800-1821, one of the commissioners who established Stewart Town, near the border of Trelawney Parish within St. Ann Parish, a lieutenant colonel in the Jamaica militia in which James played a prominent role in the Second Maroon War of 1795 to 1796, leading the third column of the Trelawney militia. Edward Chambers Sr. owned 243 enslaved people at the time of his estate's probate in 1760. Edward Chambers Jr. also owned land and enslaved people in Hanover, Jamaica. Richard Chambers enslaved people in Hanover, Jamaica, from 1817 onwards, potentially in right of his wife, Elizabeth Alice Chambers, according to the Legacies of British Slavery Database. Alexander Chambers of Hanover, Jamaica, owned enslaved people and left a will in 1741, and John Chambers, a slave owner whose estate was involved in legal proceedings after his death in 1831. Barney's family traffics the descendants of these slaves internationally to their own family members and other diplomat bloodlines involved in the CIA and federal government, covertly by way of MK-Ultra operations, human trafficking by way of sexual slavery, drug trafficking, gang-stalking operations, to get money off of their life insurance policies and Social Security. Barney started his career at just 16 years old as a field agent in the OSS. Barney was mainly used as a saboteur against spook war operations in Western Europe. His older brother Warren was the owner of the biggest steel manufacturing company in the United States and England, while his younger brother Nelson was the CEO of his family's oil and petroleum rigs. At the age of 18, Barney became an OSS commanding officer after Warren was assassinated by the Spookor family lacing his vodka with bleach in Venice, under the orders of Jeb Spookor. Barney's goal was to get revenge on the Spookors and enslave their family for the assassination and for hexing his whole bloodline to extinction for not wanting to be involved in their Nazi operations, and for introducing Marxism and homosexual pornography into Germany. In 1944, Barnaby dies from vomiting out his own heart while on a business trip in Spain. It was discovered that Yang Cheng made a deal with Wilhelm Spookor to give Germany half territorial power over Japan, in exchange for the death of Barnaby. Enraged, Barney decided to plot operations, Kingslayer, and Cursebreaker, with the help of Jerry Jonas, Martin Loomis, and Eric Zuden, all whose family members did unspeakable acts against children and animals on camera on the Foo Foo Express and Foo Foo Island. Out of all of them, Barney is the only one that was actually on the island, best friends with Yang Cheng, is a full-blown pedophile with a preference for young black or ethnic children between the ages of a baby to 14 years old, and deeply involved in distributing Otis Delgado Diaz's child pornography. Barney decided to pay Lemurian paramilitary members in gold bars and gold coins for the assassination of Yang Cheng and the sabotaging of his blackmail operations. But they all kept getting fired by Yang Cheng with what's assumed to be elemental witchcraft. Barney told Jerry to assign Hector Kwon and Kaya Shinkalabwe under the recommendation of Martin Loomis and the Queen of England due to their Lemurian heritage and ruthless fighting abilities. Barney wanted to have the whole island blown up to destroy all evidence on the island's existence, and ownership of Yang Cheng's dead body to examine what species Yang is, since there's been a psychic block on the genetic lineage of the Yang family. Barney took advantage of Kaya retiring the armed forces by hiring Hector Kwon on a war raid on Spookor Castle. The mission was an off-the book's military contract out on the heads of brothers Jeb and Wilhelm Spookgore. The goal was to go to Argentina and have Barney lead the raid on Spookgore Castle by air and land on Broomstick, aka the Boomstick by Gaslighting Industries, against Wilhelm Spookgore, while Hector raids the castle from underground to assassinate Jeb Spookgore. The raid began on September 17, 1947 at 6:06 a.m. in Patagonia, Argentina. The disgustingly gory dog fight in the skies lasted 32 minutes, while the battle in Spookgore Castle lasted 33 minutes. Barney's battle with Wilhelm on the rooftop of the castle lasted exactly 6 minutes and 6 seconds, which ended in Barney using magic and astral projection on Wilhelm, causing Wilhelm to choke to death by his own prolapsed colon forcefully removed from him. While Wilhelm choked to death on his own asshole, Barney detected a very power energy source coming from Jeb's bedroom. Barney went to the source and found out that Jeb had a supercomputer in his bedroom. Barney examined the computer, which turned out to be an AI program labeled Looking Glass. Barney sees a list of names and files of all of his family members with all of their traits, talents, strengths, weakness, diet, health, sexual taste, medical records, associates, past, present, and future friends, enemies, and sexual partners, and natal charts of all members of their family, with a list of different probabilities. Barney discovered that the supercomputer he found was a precognition artificial intelligence supercomputer that can calculate probable futures of individuals and world events based on their natal charts and astrological alignments in the universe. Barney realized he can use the supercomputer to not only create world events but to play God and peoples and alter their destinies with MK Ultra and CIA resources. The day after the raid, the CIA was created under the guidance of President Truman with the signing of the National Security Act, and funding from Barney Walker, Gaslighting Industries, the Jonas family, and the Diaz family. The CIA was made as a money laundering front for their bloodline's criminal operations internationally under the guise of protecting United States national security against the USSR. Barney took the Looking Glass supercomputer, reverse engineered it, and sold copies of the technology to all nations. Because of this, every government around the world can alter and switch the destinies of anyone on planet Earth. After World War II, New York City saw a surge in heroin consumption, with a shift in user demographics from older, white working-class males to primarily African American and Latino drug users in segregated neighborhoods. Barney Walker and Othis Delgado Diaz's younger brother Rafael Diaz. They started heavily pushing heroin into black and Latino communities in Harlem and made billions of dollars. While Martin Loomis, a British-American Ashkenazi Jew, was alive, neither him nor Hector trusted Barney because of Operation Paperclip and for Barney sleeping with his wife and brainwashing his son Richard against him. Martin also hated the fact that he was a coward that liked to make his people look bad by always hiding behind his Jewish identity to avoid accountability of him and his family's corruption and their ties to the Havara Agreement. Since December 13, 1947, Barney Walker used the money he made from selling the Looking Glass supercomputer to buy 90% of the production and distribution companies in Hollywood. Barney is in competition with Jeremy Zudin and the Diaz family in terms of ownership in Hollywood. The Diaz and Walker family also used Hollywood to wash their drug money by funding film productions. Due to Barney's family officially being the richest bloodline in the world, and a power shift after the deaths of Jeb and Wilhelm Spookgore, Barney Walker and his family had unlimited power over the United Nations due to also being the winners of World War II. Barney started the Vietnam War by hiring assets left from Yongcheng and rogue Lemurians to plant bombs in the American U-boats stationed at the Gulf of Tonkin on August 2, 1964. The war was money laundering proxy war scheme to cover up for Barney, Raffle, and Richard's heroin and human trafficking operations out of the poppy fields of Vietnam, and a massive human sacrifice for Barney's family's unlimited power over both capitalism and communism. Shortly after Martin died of a heart attack after the assassination of Malcolm X in 1964, Barney married Martin's wife and adopted his son. Barney took Richard under his wing and gave him his first job as weapons development and research in DARPA in 1965. Richard Dick Loomis took advantage of all the poppy seeds Barney got during Operation Phoenix and decided to start selling his own shipments by flooding it into Harlem and the Bronx in New York. Raffle and Barney realized Richard was a natural at distributing drugs and made a deal with Richard to amply the high of their heroin, in exchange for Richard getting 33% of their profits. Another aspect of the deal is in order to save money on distribution to only sell cocaine and LSD in the suburbs, while only selling heroin and PCP to the black and Latino communities. Since the raid on Spookgore Castle, Barney has grown his sick twisted obsession with Hector Kwon due to the way Hector dealt with the operation, and the fact that Hector and his future offspring was the highest probability to take down their family's corrupted influence on humanity, along with Jerry Jonas's grandson, Yongcheng's granddaughter, and Malcolm Bertrand's grandson. Barney decided to make his family have physical and spiritual influence, power and control over those bloodlines with the use of behavior modification human experiments, MK Ultra, and Operation Bluebird, and overburden those bloodlines with non-stop witchcraft, social engineering, and and human trafficking them to Barney's extended family, by installing Barney's family members into the targets of obsession's life and have them get married into those families to gain their inheritance and control them from within is a sleight of hand. Other than that, Barney has also weaponized a supercomputer on the fate of the Nazi bloodlines that weren't executed, like scientists, doctors, engineers, etc., including the surviving members of the Sputgor family. Barney decided to have a business arrangement with the CIA and KGB to have Nazis exchange their knowledge, information, and files on the scientific, medical, and weapons research they've developed and discovered during World War II, and reverse engineered from Zeta Gray extraterrestrials with both agencies in exchange for their freedom and positions of power in their weapons and research organizations like NASA, DARPA, the CIA, FBI, Department of Justice, Department of Defense, etc. They were also eligible for immigration and employment in any industry despite any potential past associations with the Nazi regime. This business arrangement was known as Operation Paperclip, which went official on July 20, 1945. The scientists brought over through Operation Paperclip included figures like NASA engineering program manager and chief architect of the Apollo Saturn V rocket Wernher von Braun, who played a crucial role in the NASA. However, the program also had ethical concerns, as many of the scientists had ties to Nazi war crimes and human experiments in concentration camps. Barney felt it's best to enslave these Nazis and use them as control assets to do his family's bidding and complete his new world order. Barney casted a spell on the whole U.S. government and their citizens to overlook or downplay these connections in order to acquire the scientists' expertise for national security and Cold War competition, and to cover up the United States government's involvement in covering up the death of Adolf Hitler, also Barney and his family's betrayal to the Jews for unlimited power. Barney Walker is the mastermind behind the Black Rose Society's operations, Helter Skelter, and Grindhouse. The objective of both operations was to infiltrate subculture and pop culture with the development and weaponization of the hippie, civil rights, Pan-African, Rastafarian, and truth movements to spread historical and spiritual disinformation and undermine anyone who questions the government, since the public relations nightmare of the Korean War being protested by college students all over the United States. The goal of the both operations was the same but different. Operation Helter Skelter was meant to do so, but with the use of socially engineered serial killers conditioned by the CIA from Barney Walker's MK Ultra operations, and targeted the Caucasian race with the use of Charles Manson and Anton Levy. Also to normalize serial killers and have the public slowly gain sympathy with serial killers by weaponizing horror movies and giving serial killers a platform to spread their gross agenda, which ultimately leads to normalizing Satanism into the mainstream media. While Operation Grindhouse targeted ethnic communities with the use of anti-establishment motivated socially engineered religious cult leaders conditioned by the CIA from Barney Walker's MK Ultra operations, like Jim Jones. The goal was to label anyone who questions the Walker family's corruption within the CIA and government around as conspiracy theorists. The Hippies was purposely created as a brainchild of Barney Walker's MK Ultra operations to make anyone who questioned authority look like unstable, dirty, hedonistic, schizophrenic, crazy, drug addicts. Or they will be publicly assassinated with their legacy ruined. This in turn conditioned the public into thinking only low-life conspiracy theorists questions the government and the media, and be submissive to abuse of human rights and civil liberties. These operations worked very well since Barney was weaponizing capitalism and socialism to its advantage to disenfranchise every human on planet Earth that's not in the elite against each other politically. By February 19, 1967, Barney became an international real estate tycoon and owner of a chain of luxury hotels known as Basic Hotel. With the Basic Hotel, Barney provides a place of sanctuary for Hollywood's elite like Roman Polanski to have their orgies in style and sophistication. However, Barney is using those properties for pedophile entrapment operations and to collect blackmail on Hollywood in order to control Hollywood against his competition in the film industry Jeremy Zudin, CIA operative Eric Zudin's older brother, and label anyone that goes against his MK Ultra operations in Hollywood as anti-Semitic, communist homosexuals, pedophiles, and release their blackmail to the media. The Basic Hotel is also used as another money laundering scheme to wash the profits made from the Black Rose Society's drug operations, as well as Barney and Rafael Diaz's child porn operations. Simultaneously, Barney was under investigation by the Treasury Department and Department of Justice Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy Sr. for tax evasion, hiring Latinos with family ties to the Spanish government aristocracy like Virgilio Gonzalez as privateers to wiretap American citizens, funding Vietcong, the Black Panthers, and the Ku Klux Klan, weaponizing the FBI, sleeper agents of the Cuban government and the Black Rose Society to spy on American citizens, running a heroin and human trafficking empire, being a worse extortionist than Yang Cheng, installing communist and fascist sleeper agents related to bad actors of foreign governments in positions of authority in high and low places in all aspects of North American politics and law enforcement, his child child porn ring with Rafael Diaz, spying on Jimmy Hoffa for blackmail on the Italian mafia, and funding the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X. Robert Kennedy and the Kennedy family had a personal vendetta against the Walker family for the murder of John F. Kennedy, doing black magic on the heart of Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., leaking the lobotomy of Rosemary Kennedy to the press as retaliation for John F. Kennedy refusing to be a controlled asset for the CIA and the Black Rose Society, and for assassinating John F. Kennedy for his final speech which he made about secret societies and censorship of the press, which was made out of spite of Barney and his bloodline's wicked occupation of the United States government, and their non-stop abuse and behavioral experiments on citizens of the United States. Since Robert Kennedy Sr. had everything on Barney because of Barney's shut-up spells wearing off, Barney hired a Palestinian nationalist known as Saran to assassinate Robert Kennedy. Barney, who is a proud Zionist, made the assassination look like it was done by a Palestinian to get more public support, sending tax-paying money and American troops to fight on behalf of the Israeli-Palestinian holy war. In turn, Barney manipulated public consent to gain the funding to start his human trafficking operations in Palestine by using USAID money sent to Israel. After the assassination, Barney was desperate to assassinate Hoffa and get all the files, recordings and tapes he has on everyone in authority. However, when Barney remote viewed Hoffa's files, he found out that Hoffa has everything on Barney Walker due to how the Italian mafia despised doing business with the Walkers since they always fucked them over. Barney later found out both Hoffa and the Italian mob was planning to clap Barney for doing witchcraft on their relationships, funding the Latinos to destabilize Italian mafia operations on American soil, sending the feds on them all, bragging about doing MK Ultra on their children, and having enough blackmail on the Walkers because of people in Hollywood had enough of working with Barney's disgusting family and assets of the Black Rose Society. Originally, Jerry Jonas's son Hayden was tasked with assassinating Jimmy Hoffa. However, Jimmy Hoffa publicly threatened to air out Barney Walker's dirty laundry by mentioning having dirt on United States government officials, not just the mafia. On July 30, 1975 at 2:45 p.m., the furious Barney kidnaps Jimmy Hoffa by snatching him by the back of his collar on broomstick, and flew off into the atmosphere. As Barney Walker got to 666 feet into the sky, Barney Walker dropped Jimmy Hoffa over the Atlantic Ocean into the same area where the Titanic sank. When Jimmy Hoffa breaks his legs when he hit the water, Barney zipped down to at least 6 feet above the water, watching Jimmy Hoffa slowly drown to death. Barney and his family happened to be energy vampires that manipulated people's energy and trauma, aka loosh, as a battery to stay energized to do their evil, non-stop. Due to the Kwons being a respected family of witch hunters around the world including Scotland, and the fact that the Walkers look similar to Hector's father's side of the family, the Walker family usually mimics the Kwons' energy and appearance as a form of switch destiny rituals and energetic shape-shifting to embody the Kwon family's energy and traits such as their superhuman invulnerability of superhuman energy levels, spiritual intuition and positive vibrations. Barney and his family was so obsessed with Hector and his family that half of the Black Rose Society, including Jeremy Zudin, almost all of the elite bloodlines that run the world, directors and actors that worked on film productions with Hector, and all governments around the world warned the Walkers to leave them alone. Considering the fact that the Kwons are Lemurian, messing with the Kwons would cause a Lemurian war which lead to the extinction of warches, and the exposure of all government secrets around the world due to the amount of evidence Hector collected during every operation him and Kaya ever done for the OSS, CIA, FBI, SOE, NASA, the Department of Defense, and MI6. On top of that, everyone knew the couple wanted to be left alone to live their life in peace unbothered. However, Barney and his family became obsessed with their energy and ended up manipulating every aspect of their life by telepathically spying on and remote viewing the Kwon family non-stop, and torturing them with voodoo dolls and astral projections. The first person to pick up on the Walkers' satanic energy was Hector's and Kaya's son Shen, however they were too busy to look into it even though the couple had picked up on diabolical energy the moment they first met Barney in 1945. Barney had either paid, brainwashed or blackmailed every witch and warlock on planet Earth including all pagans, Wiccans, and warches to overstimulate and confuse Hector and Kaya with non-stop witchcraft and negative energy. That way their intuition is clouded and they are manipulated against the wrong people, including each other. While Kaya Shinkalabwe Kwon was doing bodyguard work for Bob Marley in late 1976, during a Bob Marley concert, Hector Kwon and his son Shen snuck out of the concert to break into Edward Seaga's office for intel on Barney. Hector knew that Edward was in Martin's Black Book of Traitors in power within the United Nations involved in Barney's MK Ultra operations. In Edward's bedroom, Shen finds a photo of Barney being a high priest with his cousin Jimmy Cliff doing obia on photos of the Marley family and family members of the original Wailers band for Edward, as well as the housing blueprints of Jamaican citizens that didn't want to vote for Edward Seaga and that had pedophile blackmail on Jimmy Cliff. The two found out that the housing blueprints is used for them to send monitoring spirits and demons into those households by using gangstalkers to break into their house and plant obia onto their property. Us knowing how Hector is, Hector took pictures of the documents and photos as evidence in case Barney tries to fuck with him and his family. However, Shen found blueprints to all of the hotels they were staying at, with each room they were in labeled HK, and found out that Barney and Jimmy Cliff was playing people to put obia in and spit in the food of the Kwons while they stayed in Jamaica working for Bob Marley. Hector was so enraged he wanted to kill everyone involved, including the whole JLP and everyone plotting against Bob Marley and his family. However, Shen, being a Boy Scout, convinced Hector not to. While Hector was taking pictures in Edward Seaga's bedroom, Barney later immediately found out because Jimmy Cliff was spying on the Kwons ever since they stepped foot in Jamaica in 1973 with the use of the police department, every obia worker on the island involved in his operations, and criminals on his payroll. Barney hired Jimmy Cliff and Edward Seaga to stage an assassination on Bob Marley to make it look like a hungry criminal was looking for a name for himself, and to make it a Jamaican citizen to throw off people investigating his use of the CIA and FBI's foreign budget, and also to ruin Kaya's reputation as a bodyguard, which would kill her spirit and force her to retire. Edward Seaga and Jimmy Cliff wanted to frame Michael Manley for political reasons. However, Barney felt he could get Manley to bend with enough sabotage to his political career by using Henry Kissinger. So Barney was against making it look like a politically motivated assassination. Edward and Jimmy felt embarrassed about being pushed around by some batty-bowie capitalist Scotsman, and wanted to do the operation their own way and teach the Kwons a lesson about the JLP, teaching them a lesson the Kwons will never forget. On December 3, 1976, Edward and Jimmy sent multiple CIA-hired assassins and every gunman in Jamaica desperate to get at Bob Marley to raid his household, with multiple shots being fired. The two wanted everyone in that house dead, while Barney only wanted Bob Marley, Hector and her son Shen. Edward and Jimmy made a tactical fuck-up, which was they were bragging all over town about killing the Kwons because they are batty-bowie capitalist, and there was so much gunfire the battle led into the streets of Jamaica, leaving behind Kaya to get Bob and Rita to a safe house. The next morning the Kwons left Jamaica. However, Barney was furious by having his leadership challenged by his subordinates and decided to put Edward Seaga's name all over CIA documents of the CIA's plan to destabilize Jamaica to avoid Jamaica from being another communist nation like Cuba. During the Apollo 17 mission of December 1972, Barney got Richard a job as a mission controller. After the attempted assassination of Bob Marley, Richard Loomis became a quartermaster for the CIA, while Barney became the director of the CIA, which gave Barney unlimited diplomatic immunity to get away with his criminal operations. Barney Walker is the most wicked villain of gas punk fiction Gen 1 and Gen 2, and usually acts as a false opposition sleight of hand with loyalty only towards himself and the legacy of his bloodline. Barney Walker's natal chart is Sun in Aries, Moon in Libra, and Scorpio rising. Barney Walker's main arm is his Hollywood wand.
Minutes and methods label me a lethal weapon, making niggas die, witnessing breathless imperfections. Can you picture my specific plan? To be the man in this wicked land, underhanded hits a plan. Scams are plotted over grams of rock. Outlaws, motherfuckers die by the random shot. We all die in the end, so revenge we swung. I was all about my ends, fuck friends and foes. Me, a born leader, never lead a block without my heater. Got me a dog and named him my bitch nigga Heater. What could they do to me, a little brat? Shit, them niggas that shot me and still terrified. I beat they ass. How can I show you how I feel inside? We outlaws, motherfuckers can't kill my pride. Niggas talk a lot of shit, but that's after I'm gone. Cause they fear me in the physical form. Let them be known, them troubles. Troublesome niggas. Outlaws. Put it down to the fullest. Spitting rhymes and bullets. We troublesome. Y'all know what time it is. Call the punk police. They can't stop us. Niggas run the streets. We troublesome. Cutaways, my mentality is ghetto. A gorilla in this criminal war. We all rebels. Death before design, I bet I bomb on them first. Niggas knew we came from murder. Pulling up in a hearse. West side was the war cry. Busting off freely, screaming fuck all y'all niggas in Swahili. Pistol packing fresh out of jail. I ain't going back. Release me to the care of my heartless strap. Say my name 3 times like Candyman. Bet I roll on your ass like an avalanche. I'm so survivor. Learn to get high and bull drive-bys. Murder my foes, can't control my nine. Hearing thoughts of my enemies bleeding, please. Bustin' ass motherfuckers tried to flee. Picture me letting this chump survive. Ran up on his ass when I dumped he died. Cause I'm troublesome. Young, strapped, and I don't give a fuck. I'm hopeless. I live a thug life, losing my focus, baby. I'm troublesome. Bad boy killer. There is no one realer. What you saw was the rough, rugged, and raw. Outlaw. Murder, murder, my mind state. Shit ain't changed since my last rhyme. The crime rate ain't declined.
Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophiles. Because them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Them lock up the ganja man, them never lock up the pedophile. Them never lock up pedophiles. Because them wicked and them nasty and them vile. Yeah, wicked and
decline. Crime rate is decline. Crime rate is decline. Crime rate is decline. Crime rate is decline.